everybody, and welcome to another board game review and gameplay demo. Today's is a Kickstarter preview for Multiverse Cosmic Conquest. Before I really get started, I would like to invite you, if you haven't done so already, to take a look at all my various social media pages, where I'll post new videos as I release them, as well as contests, giveaways, and all sorts of other cool stuff, and to take a look at my Patreon page. If you decide to support me over there, then you'll be able to see videos sooner, you'll be able to vote on new videos, and a whole bunch of other neat things as well. That said, Multiverse Cosmic Conquest is a new type of hybrid trading card game. Like other TCGs, you have starter decks, you've got booster packs, rare, common, uncommon, you've got different energy types that you're trying to collect and utilize and all that kind of stuff. However, the hybrid aspect comes into play because you are exploring. You're actually going out and you're trying to find new planets to conquer and all of this kind of stuff. So it's pretty interesting. It's a really interesting take on an old formula, not to mention the fact that you can actually play with a large number of players as well. The creators of Multiverse Cosmic Conquest let me into essentially their beta so that I could take a look at it and do a quick review for all of you. So to get started, we're going to get right on to what this game is similar to. As far as similarities are concerned, there are two major ones I wanted to mention. First and foremost, Magic the Gathering, probably unsurprisingly. Again, we're looking at a trading card game, so we've got booster packs, we've got rare commons and uncommons, we've got different colors of land masses, which in this case are represented by planets that allow you to generate materials so that you can essentially summon your cards onto the board. The big difference comes in the fact that you're able to actually take your cards and move them around a hex-based board to explore, and you're able to find more planets so that you can generate more materials, get your bigger stuff out essentially. So that leads me right into my second similarity, which is Eclipse. You essentially have that economic and exploration aspect in Cosmic Conquest, similarly to how you have with Eclipse. In addition, you can play with a lot of players, so you can have a lot of sort of like alliances, backstabbing, all of that kind of stuff, and say, oh, let's all go after this one person, or all of that kind of thing. So there's a lot of intrigue in that sense, not to mention there's a lot of player interaction in terms of how you combat your opponents, because you've got things like boarding and all of that kind of stuff. But that said, let's get right into my demo for this game. The way it worked is essentially there's a platform called Octagon, which is serving as sort of a beta testing for what will become the proprietary platform. So a few days ago I played with one of the creators, Leandro.
Alright everybody, we're here in the middle of a game of Multiverse Cosmic Conquest. In this game, the goal is to either control 10 of these individual hexagons representing the collective galaxy, or you can go in and attack and conquer your opponent's home planet, which are these two apex areas on the board. Now for this particular game, this is a two-player game. I am playing with Leandro, one of the creators of the game. Go ahead and say hi.
Hello everybody.
And we're having a pretty good time with it. We're playing two very, very different decks. I am playing a red deck, which is designed as a very aggressive, attack-heavy deck, whereas he is playing as a green-blue deck, which is more exploration-based. So essentially, my goal is to go in and attack his home planet, whereas his goal, as you can see, he's spreading out like a bunch of evil spiders or something. I don't know what a good analogy is. But for anybody who has ever played trading card games before, you know that this is typically the kind of thing that you see where you've got different resources and they sort of lend themselves to specific play styles. So it's the start of my turn. I actually already drew a card. The other thing is that you get resources at the beginning of your turn. So every planet that you control that is a planet as opposed to an empty space will get resources. In this case, it says add RR during production. That means I get 2 reds. So I'll go ahead and add 2 to this. And right now, I'll note that essentially this is on Octagon, which is a free-to-use platform to test and sort of prototype games. But the final platform is going to be exclusive and proprietary for Multiverse itself. And also the artwork is actually going to exist. Right now, we just have text for the vast majority of these, but they're all going to have actual art. So it's my turn to actually play something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my human officer and play it down here. So the cost is R2, which means I need 2 reds, or I need a red and then 2 of something else. So I will just spend a total of 3 reds in order to get it done. And now the officer is inside of the ship, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that into this section with the solar wing, because I need to try to stop him from expanding a little bit. So I'll go ahead and move the 2 in there, and now we are in combat. And it just so happens that underneath here we have an empty space card, which means that my bowjet gets +2 power. So instead of having speed 1, power 1, health 2, I now have speed 1, power 3, health 2, and because of my human captain, when I attack, I can't get any damage on my bowjet. So it's a pretty sweet deal, and essentially I just blow his solar wing out of the water.
Yeah, and this way you destroy both the ship and the unit inside of it as well.
Oh, so sad. I'm so sad for you. Oh, boo-hoo. And now, the empty space, I now take control of that because I've essentially conquered it. And at the same time, I'm going to go ahead and take my bowjet and move it towards his home planet, which is currently just populated by a farmer. So I am no longer on empty space with this bowjet, but I do still have an attack power of 1, and so I do 1 damage to his farmer. And then just sort of wait until next turn. And now it is Leandro's turn.
All right, so at the beginning of my turn, I will add resource on all of my planets. I have a few because I've been exploring all this game. Then I will draw a card. All right, so you're right here in my base. That's pretty scary. I need to find a way to defend myself. Although, actually, wait a second. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces under my control. So I just have to explore 2 spaces in the galaxy and bring that total up to 10. So that means I win by conquering 10 spaces in the galaxy.
Hooray! You win!
It was a close game, though. You almost
So
had me
essentially
there.
that's the end of our little demo game here that we had been playing for a little while. Again, with mine you can see here I essentially just did a straight track directly for his home base in order to try to conquer it, whereas he was exploring the outside, because again, that's the way that his particular deck works. There's, what, 6 colors, I believe, in total?
Yes,
and
6 colors.
they range in use from being heavily aggressive like the red is, to heavy exploring like the blue-green, to being able to even do boarding and hyper-aggression and all sorts of other stuff, essentially. But you can see, I don't think we actually used any of the rare cards. I think we only just used commons and uncommons, if I'm not mistaken. I know I didn't even get any rares in my hand, but either way, that's a decent overview at least of Multiverse. And again, looking forward to seeing the proprietary platform and everything. But for the purposes of my video right now, we'll just go on ahead into some general conclusions and pros and cons for the game.
All right, sounds good.
I hope that you enjoyed my quick little playthrough for Cosmic Conquest. Again, Octagon is a beta platform. It's not going to be the final product, but as always, we got to get into some pros and cons for the game overall. First and foremost, with the pros, I really do enjoy how the creators were able to build this hybrid platform of the trading card game as well as the exploration aspect. I love the exploration. I love economic games. Eclipse is one of my favorite games of all time, and honestly, it really reminded me of that. The second major pro for me is how they're going to be handling the actual trading card aspect. You guys know I am not a big fan of trading card games in general. It is not my shtick whatsoever. But it's kind of interesting because they're not going to treat it as a traditional trading card game where you can exchange directly between players. Instead, if you have a buildup of a lot of cards that you really don't need, then you can trade them back to the market and you get another card. You get a new card of essentially a higher rarity. So I really appreciate that because it means that even newcomers to the game are still going to be able to build up their collections relatively efficiently, and you're not going to end up having price gouging and that kind of thing. Along the same lines, I do appreciate the idea of making it all digital, at least initially. Now this is kind of twofold for them because they want to do it for an economic value as well as for a sensible player value. Economically, it just makes more sense because it's going to be a lot easier to find people to play with if you can play online, as opposed to paying all the money it costs to print out literally thousands and thousands, if not tens of thousands of cards so that people can get an actual physical deck. That said, at some point they do want to move it into the physical realm. Another pro I wanted to mention is the sheer versatility of this game. Honestly, like many trading card games, you're going to end up with a whole lot of different options. In this case, you have, I believe it's half a dozen colors, and each of them essentially focuses on a particular aspect of the game. For example, red focuses on being aggressive and just trying to like bullet through and take what they need, whereas like the blue and green focuses on exploration, violet focuses on being able to do the boarding and ship-to-ship combat and all that kind of stuff. So in that sense, it's really cool because it's kind of like there's a little something for everybody, and even if you don't like the really aggressive stance, maybe you'd enjoy the exploration stance and things of that nature. Again, really a trait of TCGs in general, but it's something I really appreciate in any game, is having a large amount of versatility. As far as cons are concerned, there are a few that I want to mention. First and foremost is the fact that, yes, it is still a trading card game. This is one where you can get a starter deck, and then you can buy boosters, and you can get a lot of boosters, and you still might not be able to get that one card that you really need. For my purposes, when I was playing, again, the creators invited me to play it, and when I tried it out, they essentially gave me like this big starter pack that included every single card in the game. Obviously, people backing the Kickstarter won't necessarily be able to have that, and so that's one of my biggest frustrations in general with trading card games, and I worry that it's still going to happen. Again, it's nice that they mitigate it at least somewhat, but if you're turned off to trading card games in general like I am, it's worth a look for sure, but definitely sort of just dip your toes a little bit before you dive straight in. The second and final major con for me is really the rules. I had to read through them several times to mostly understand what was going on, and even then, the creators kind of had to help me go through step by step a little bit. Now, that's something that can be modified in the future, but it's just something where there's new things going on and it's really kind of unusually done. It does make sense once you really get into it, but it's kind of difficult to really start up, essentially. But other than that, overall, I really did enjoy Multiverse. I honestly was not expecting to, because I went in with like all of my antennae and trepidations up because of the fact that it's a trading card game. But in the end, I did have a good time. I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was very unique. Playing with multiple players simultaneously is really fun and creates an entirely new gaming experience. It's just more interesting than I honestly expected it to be, in the best way possible. That said, if you're like me and you're really not a fan of trading card games, it may not be for you if you don't enjoy the idea of doing like the deck tweaking and all that kind of stuff, because I was just using like recommended starter decks and stuff like that. If you're not willing to invest the time, just like with any trading card game, it may not be for you, but it is certainly worth taking a look at. You can take a look at the Kickstarter link in the description below. But with that, thank you very, very much for watching, and I will see you next time.